Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with part 2 of What If Naofumi was the legendary chainsaw hero. I'm gonna try to be going daily, but if I don't go daily, don't be that surprised. Obviously, I'm feeling better, but I do struggle to record a little bit because of my voice. But hey, we're here still, and I'm recording. I believe this is this video will come out the day of recording this, so if y'all enjoy it, show some love. I know the other Naofumi part 1 didn't get the most views, and these videos aren't getting the most views, and I know why that's the case. But maybe I'll keep hammering these out for y'all, and especially for those who are enjoying them. And if you continue to enjoy them, I'll make sure to give y'all what you want. Because I know some of y'all like Tanjiro stuff, some of y'all like My Hero stuff, some of y'all like Naofumi stuff. Especially, I built a pretty big group of people that really like Naofumi stuff. So I don't want to stray away from that entirely, especially when Naofumi or Shield Hero comes back for season 3, which it will. So for those who are excited, be prepared for that. And yeah, I'm not gonna waste much more of your time, and let's get right into where we left off, and that is, well, our heroes being dragged away. Let's get it. Naofumi and Raphtalia were put in a, let's say, deadly situation, but now they're in a different situation. This situation is in a different country entirely, and this country wants to make sure that they are fine and ready to go. Naofumi and Raphtalia were revived under some sort of magical instance, but it's not necessarily magical. From what we know, it must have to do with that little companion. That tiny companion with a chainsaw blade sticking out of its head might have, well, morphed with Naofumi and Raphtalia. Is that the case? Well, they're not sure, but still, it's something that's Shield Frieden, the people and nobles there have no idea what's going on, but they still decide to help. The people of Shield Frieden begin to speak with Naofumi and Raphtalia about what occurred and what happened, and how did they die with such high levels. Keep in mind, with the fusion of whatever that little companion was, it actually leveled them up quite a bit. On top of that, giving them a higher threshold to gaining levels. It seems that they have powers even more dormant than they can possibly imagine, which is something Naofumi and Raphtalia need to figure out in the long run. But with that said, the nobles of Shield Frieden begin to speak with both of them, asking any questions they possibly can, and they answer anything they can. Basically saying that the reason why they died was because of, well, the kingdom of Melromarc. They really didn't want them alive in the first place, and it all came crashing down and all came to a front relatively quickly after the first wave. They are obviously surprised to hear this, and frankly, they're shocked to hear this. They didn't think that Melromarc would go to such lengths, especially when not getting what they wanted. But the noblemen of Shield Frieden question how, well, questionable is this really when coming from the Melromarc kingdom. They've done some very questionable things, especially with summoning all the heroes at once. This is when Naofumi learns about how that shouldn't have happened. All of the heroes should have been summoned separately, but there must have been corruption within the Melromarc kingdom that led to this. Of course, Shield Frieden says that they can stay as long as they want, and they would definitely appreciate their help in defending the waves. The other countries have no way really of defending the waves either, besides their armies. And yes, that is okay and doable now, but it won't be doable forever. They have armies, they have some of the 7-star heroes, but other than that, there's not much. And eventually they will get overpowered because the 4 summoned heroes are far stronger. The 4 cardinal heroes are going to be far stronger than anything else in this world. Of course, Naofumi is worried about this, but I mean, he has to think about the well-being of himself and his party member as well. they just literally died, and now they're somehow back to life. They're not so sure, but still, they decide they're going to help shield Frieden, asking if they need any help around the country, in which, of course, they do. But they are a little bit, by a little bit, I mean a lot of bits, more set up than the Melromarc Kingdom. They're not, or they're more structured and not more against each other, and frankly, there's not some sabotage going on, because currently in the Melromarc, or the Melromarc country, there is a ton of sabotage and a ton of things going on that really are not going to be stopped. And obviously those include some of the instances that Naofumi originally would stop, but unfortunately now, not in the position to do so, Naofumi can't do anything about it. But he can help with the people that he currently is around now. He begins to run errands with Raphtalia around the Shield Frieden area, and frankly, a lot of it is beneficial. He helps the people in the country in general, kills some bosses that need to be killed, and he gains a pretty good amount of XP throughout this time. On top of that, he's introduced into various different ways of increasing strength. He didn't really have any armor or upgrades, and of course Shield Frieden is totally up to giving him whatever he needs to basically get stronger. On top of him helping out, they would have loved to give him free armor, free weaponry, but obviously he doesn't need any weapons, but anything that can really help him. So that's something Naofumi will definitely get upgraded at, and on top of that, as many potions and weaponry, or as many potions and enhancements that he needs, he basically gets all of it from Shield Frieden and the noblemen there. On top of that, the shops are more or less free for Naofumi as long as he helps out here and there, in which of course he does. He begins to level up rapidly, and he learns of the Dragon Hourglass, something that he didn't know about initially because of, well, his feud with Melromarc, which is barely even a feud when Naofumi has no idea what he did wrong when he basically didn't do anything wrong. But he does learn that he can actually level up, or basically expand the level of his party members. This would lead to Raphtalia getting even stronger, getting a class upgrade, and on top of that, he begins to add more people to his party. These people, I'll be honest, aren't as consequential, but they're just people in Shield Frieden that have some potential and have some potentially high strength thresholds that begin training with Naofumi. This alone would help the protection of Shield Frieden, so Naofumi would feel a lot better about being in certain areas when certain waves would begin. Nonetheless, he begins to travel Shield Frieden entirely and begins to look around. He even asks questions about the other countries, including Sildveld. Sildveld being the place that normally the shield hero is brought up in, but this time around, obviously, they know what happened, and there's straight up no shield hero at this moment. Of course, Naofumi is concerned. There's an underlying concern that he's definitely thinking about. Well, here's the problem. They all think he's dead, and if he's dead, from what he's heard and read in the books in the Shield Frieden library, it means that the heroes will get extremely harder waves. And if that's the case, will they even be able to win? I mean, Naofumi knows that he somehow did get revived, but does that still linger if he technically was dead at one point? Does he count as one of the heroes? He's not so sure. Frankly, there's no solid answer to any of this, but if the waves are more difficult because one hero technically died, that could mean the death of the world entirely, or at least the death of the heroes. Of course, Shield Frieden does respond to this, and they say that they're not so sure. They're really not. And if they knew more, they would definitely tell Naofumi, but unfortunately, they just don't. But of course, Naofumi will continue to help out where he can, all the way up until the next wave. And that next wave is definitely something to look out for. But now Fumi and Rautalia have become so much stronger. On top of that, some of the other party members that are basically some noblemen or just high tier people that are warriors in Frieden have become, well, immensely stronger as well. Now Fumi and Rautalia have also tested out what their new powers are, but are still relatively confused about how to use them. Of course, the worry of a power that is unbeknownst to them is something important, especially when you never know. You could pull that cord, empty that bottle, and you might not be able to stop the power that unfolds. But of course, the noblemen of Frieden have an idea. There is some sort of boss levels. There's something that they could do, really only the heroes can do, that is extremely difficult. At that point, it would be kind of suicide at their level. But if they believe that this strength that they have will be enough, or basically be enough to close that gap, it might be worth the try. In which they're not so sure if it's worth the risk, but I mean, they died once already, so I mean, there's really no reason not to risk it. And obviously, the people of Frieden aren't so sure if that's the best course of action. But if this would open up a brand new way of power, maybe guaranteeing the safety of everyone else, well, maybe it's worth the risk. Of course, Rautalia and Naofumi nod in agreement. They decide that they might as well do this. They died once, they're not necessarily afraid to die again. And Naofumi believes that if there is a path to power and a path to strength that he can gain, maybe that can give him a chance to turn this world into a world that is normal for him. Because right now, it feels like he's just an enemy for a whole entire country, and he's never wanted to feel that way ever. He would rather be home right now, with his family, with reading his manga. He doesn't want any of this. He didn't want to be thrown into this hellscape of a place, in which Rautalia can agree, but she was born here. Rautalia has been through hell and back, so she understands the feeling, at least to a certain extent. So of course, they decide to go off to this so-called dungeon. And this dungeon, well, it's going to be a difficult one. A difficult one with an extremely, extremely strong boss. So they're going to have to be prepared for that. When they head off, they begin to see this so-called dungeon. It's a dungeon that seemingly is holding a monster from a previous wave that was before their time. This monster involves like giant roars, as they can literally hear it as they walk in. They begin cutting down the small fry monsters, nothing crazy, so the monsters that are weaker, of course, eventually leading to a giant door. This giant door is weird. It seems like it's been waiting here for them specifically. Now Fumi looks at it more in depth to see this odd looking creature, a creature that has chainsaws, it seems, or blades at least, for arms and for a head. It seems like it's built of chainsaws or blades in itself, and it's a terrifying creature, in which Naofumi obviously doesn't know what to do, but as he puts his hand on the wall, it begins to crumble to dust. Welcome, the legendary chainsaw hero. And of course, this ominous voice terrifies Naofumi, but the voice disappears just like how the door did once right in front of them, and a monster, a giant monster appears, a T-Rex like monster in fact, and that monster has a blade, a chainsaw on his head as well. Of course, the people of Frieden have no idea what the monster even entails. Maybe it's different for each person that goes in, but if they wouldn't have known in the first place. But this would give them the opportunity, an opportunity to truly see what their powers have. And of course, what they didn't realize is that when they combined with that little pet, that tiny pet, they had no recollection and no idea what it was. When they pulled the string on their chest, they'd become monsters. The monster that was on the front of the door would be them. they would shred that T-Rex into little pieces, destroying it in a matter of seconds. But how and at what cost? They begin to go back to normal, looking at their body covered in blood, but they're fine. There's nothing else. They're not hurt, they're healed up, and there's no extra wounds. It seems as if there was no drawbacks either to their stats. Actually, it looks like there's been more positives than negatives. They've gained multiple levels, probably 5 to 10 levels maybe, because of killing that boss. But on top of that, they don't even know what type of strength they truly have when they're in that form. Maybe even 40, 50, 60 times or 60 levels higher than normal. That type of strength may be straight up unprecedented in general right now, but they're not so sure. They would climb out of this so-called dungeon, of course, and when they would get finally out, they'd realize that time has passed so much. They see that it's actually about to be the next wave already. So they decide to get ready as quick as possible, helping shield Frieden get prepared as well. But they all stare at Raphtalia and also Naofumi as if they were brand new people. Strength it was embedded and surrounded them. They were so much stronger when they came in, and let's just say they were strong. Their strength skyrocketed when they died and came back. So it's kind of crazy to think that they're even stronger now. The legendary chainsaw hero and his partner, which arguably is kind of like basically a chainsaw hero in herself, is just exceeding all expectations in terms of power, exceeding everything. Maybe that has something to do with not having a connection to the other heroes. Maybe it has something to do with being a different type of hero than all the rest. Well, they're not sure, but they'll take the power where they can get it, and this next wave would then approach. The purple skies would then begin once again, and they would get ready for the wave. But as they wait, they see a giant dragon appear. A giant dragon with a purple-like belly would then swoop in and begin to breathe fire on Shield Frieden. Luckily, Raphtalia and also, Naofumi were able to prevent this relatively quickly, stopping the dragon from actually hurting everything nearby, and Shield Frieden even helped out with various other people and various other flying mounts that they needed to keep up with the flying dragon. Their strength alone in their regular forms was enough to keep up with said dragon, and as they amped up some of their special skills, they would begin to shred the dragon's wings, forcing the dragon basically to land on the ground. And once the dragon landed on the ground, it was over. The dragon was then killed, but as the dragon died, something else was still amiss. Someone else was still amiss. Out of nowhere, a giant explosion would then occur on top of the dragon. But that's because, someone else has arrived. The dragon explodes, and a person with a giant scythe, or at least a scythe in general, stands on top of the corpse of the dragon. And that man is known as the Scythe Hero. Hero or not, it doesn't seem very heroic to come down out of a wave. But it seems like there's an agenda that basically is going about. And this person by the name of, eventually we will know him as Lark, has his own agenda. Lark begins to fight Raphtalia and obviously Naofumi, believing that it could be an easy fight. But what he doesn't realize is he's outclassed by a mile, especially with only partial of his strength because of the wave ending relatively soon. But still, Lark is going to fall here. Lark doesn't stand a chance. Naofumi begins to use his base form initially, but would realize they would need to increase the strength. They pull the cord on their chest as chainsaws begin to emerge throughout their body, and let's just say this fight ended far quicker than you possibly would imagine. Lark would be wounded extremely bad, and frankly, he would need to escape to save his life, because Naofumi and Rautalia would have no reason to keep them alive. And frankly, in this form that they're currently in, they're a lot more bloodthirsty. They're a lot more wanting to end their life. So there is no guarantee that Lark would even survive a little bit longer. So Lark is forced back through the wave, and he escapes at the skin of his teeth, not knowing what would lie ahead, hoping that Glass had more success than what, well, he did. And of course, she did. Glass did have far more success. Of course, the wave would eventually end, but the news of what occurred in Melromarc would travel like wildfire. The news was simple, and that news was that one of the heroes in Melromarc was slain. This sends shockwaves through everything and everyone. How the hell did they die? What happened? Were they that strong? Were the heroes that weak? Was the wave that powerful? They're not sure. But Naofumi tells Frieden, or the nobleman of Frieden, that he needs to head back to Melromarc to see what occurred, and he needs information from the queen or whoever he possibly can as soon as possible. But when he crosses the border, he would quickly and very quickly get information from somebody he really hasn't seen at all. A shadow of the queen would speak to him, telling him that they need to speak to the queen ASAP, right now. If not, this could mean the end of the entire world. Not just the Melromarc country, but the entire world. Because when one hero dies, the waves get stronger. And yes, Naofumi may have strength that is beyond everyone else's, but it doesn't mean that it will be a failsafe. Everything could collapse, and everything could die if they're not careful. And that is what she's afraid of. That's what the queen is terrified of now. Of course, Naofumi decides that he's going to speak and see the queen. He's going to see what she has to say with what's going on and what they went through. But that is for the next part of What If Naofumi Was the Legendary Chainsaw Hero. The next part might even be the finale. I'm not so sure yet, depending on which way I want to send the story. But if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, and make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I hope all you have an amazing day. Later.